Oh, no, you know what? I have to see them. I don't have the numbers anymore.
You go inside, look better.
I was wrong about moving.
Hi, good to see you. Good to see you too.
Yeah, we can hold these.
Superintendent, good to see you.
You like it?
I like the result. There's the people.
I love it. I love it.
I'm sorry, sir.
Good to see
I'm
you.
sorry.
You are too?
No, I'm just sorry he's your representative.
Oh, you're getting a heck of a deal.
I get a heck of a deal.
Someone's phone
Or
is
a
up here.
heckling.
Reporter's phone. It's
Did you have fun last night?
We lost. I hate
Yeah, I think so.
Who's this? You guys,
oh, I was just gonna say I don't recognize this gentleman here. So what about this? Do we want this?
Now, what about, Ed, what about the Phoenix Union?
Yeah.
So the Phoenix Union is going to be.
I don't know how to play
understand how
You don't have a vision.
That's the Phoenix, or this is the.
Public school.
These are the two Phoenix Union numbers. This is probably the better one. Where they believe that.
I knocked somebody out.
This is from Phoenix Union.
Those are both CTA.
Yeah.
I need the polling results.
It's that one.
So isn't that statewide?
It's 81% public schools.
It's an issue I have.
Is that statewide or
It's statewide with an emphasis on Phoenix.
Can you jot down for me the numbers?
Yep, I have it right now. So let me just get
Yeah, and then I'll start.
Yep, perfect.
Can you imagine if we could take that'd be fun.
Did you do it?
I don't know how to play.
May I have this one? Good. You can see it, and then I'll grab those numbers.
You weren't holding it well enough? They're gonna rethink this. I know, yeah. They're gonna rethink this in just a minute.
I'm just waiting for numbers from that. Yeah.
Oh, but what beers? You guys need to start at one.
JD right
Yeah. No, I'm ready to start. I just need that number.
Man down.
It's a wind, huh? This one here.
Is that cool?
Like that? Sure. That's good.
From the CTA. It is, yeah, very similar.
Yeah, okay.
70th percentile.
Okay.
Just gotta bring it up.
Thank you all for coming. I'll wait for the train to pass. I want to especially thank those legislators who've come to join us, and any of them who want to say anything afterwards. We're happy to have them do that. Tomorrow night at the Phoenix Union School Board meeting, they're being presented with a recommendation from their safety committee that they bring back school resource officers that they had expelled a few years ago. And so we thought this would be a good time to run a poll. So we ran a statewide poll that showed 81% of Arizona public school parents support having a police officer in every school, and 78% think that safety in the schools is very important. We over-sampled Phoenix Union, and the numbers were very similar. Ed is getting me the exact numbers, but they were very similar. Well over 70% of Phoenix Union parents think it's important to have a police officer in every school. About 10% were against, and the rest were undecided. So it's either 7-to-1 or 8-to-1 among Phoenix Union parents wanting school resource officers back in their school. The Phoenix Union Certified Teachers Association did a poll, and they asked whether they'd seen positive interactions between teachers or students and school resource officers, and 82% said yes. And 80% said yes when asked the question, do school resource officers have a role on Phoenix Union campus? So the parents want them overwhelmingly. The the Teachers Association, or at least the Certified Teachers Association, want them overwhelmingly. So I strongly urge that the Phoenix Union School Board accept the recommendation. They're going to receive it tomorrow night, and when I think they may be ruling on it in June, I strongly urge them to go back to having school resource officers in their schools, and I urge that of everyone statewide. Applications for safety grants, which could be either school resource officers or mental health professionals, are due April 15th. But if people want to make an application and they don't have them ready by April 15th, I've agreed that we will make an exception and accept late applications for a week beyond that to April 22nd. And we very much hope that the schools will, oh, you have the number for me? For Phoenix Union, 78% were in favor of, 78% of the parents in the Phoenix Union School District want to have school resource officers back in their school. We're urging the same thing, obviously, of all the school districts, and we've also sent a letter to mayors, or in the process of sending a letter to mayors, asking them to cooperate with us in getting school resource officers into the schools, and letting them know about the fact that I'll take late applications up to a week after the deadline, and also asking them to get their police departments to share their data with us, which I think is an important part of school safety. The biggest tragedy that could happen in our state is if a maniac invades a school and kills 20 kids. And if parents were to find out that that school could have had a school resource officer to protect the kids and didn't do it, you can imagine how the parents will feel about that. So we're making a big push. I don't want on my watch to see or anybody else's watch for that matter, to see somebody invade a school and be able to shoot people and have, as happened in other massacres, the principal in one case, teachers in another case, rush them with their bare hands and get killed because there's no one there to protect the students or the staff. So anybody who would like to make a comment, please do so, and then we'll be happy to take questions. President Senate,
President Peterson? Sure.
I would just say this, that the Republicans down here at the legislature want to make sure that our children are protected. And as the debate has gone on, we have seen where Republicans have pushed for school resource officers as a solution to protect our kids, and Democrats have said the solution to protect our kids is with counselors. And I would just ask all of you a question. If somebody with force comes into the school, who are you going to go stand behind to protect you? Do you want to go stand behind a police officer, or do you want to go stand behind a counselor? I think the answer is an obvious one. But when you have evil using force, the only way to stop evil using force is with a good person using force. These people that commit these heinous acts are cowards, and they go to where the least force can be found. One of the recent shootings that we saw was somebody who they had targeted one school, and when they learned that there was force to protect that school, they went to a different school because that school was not protected. So Republicans support this. We put this in place for a reason. We hope schools take advantage of this and that communities make sure that our children are protected. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anybody else want to say anything?
Majority Leader from the House?
And thank you guys, and I want to obviously thank Superintendent Horne for coming out here and pushing this. And look, I couldn't say it more perfectly than the president. We've also pushed bills to help in multiple aspects to protect our schools. I even have a bill that says, look, let's put $10 million towards making sure teachers know what to do in these situations. How do they handle a situation if there's a live shooter? What happens if you have to administer first aid? All being optional solutions for schools. They can pick and choose what kind of program they want. Every Democrat voted no on that. And so this is the part that's, I think, disturbing and really frustrating for us up here as Republicans is we are looking for solutions. And it might be one thing, it might be another, SROs is something that we all agree with as Republicans as being a solution. But for us to sit here and say that the only solution is counselors and everything else should be voted no on is absolutely insane. So it comes to a point where we have to do something, period. And I'm hopeful that the other side of the aisle understands that that more is better, that whatever we can do, doing all of these things is going to save our children's lives, and that is the most important thing. What can we do to make sure our children are safe in the state of Arizona? And like the president said, you have to fight evil. These people are purely evil, period. And the goal is to make sure that they don't step foot into our schools, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that that's the case. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Anybody else want to say anything? No, but I have a committee I'm supposed to started about 5 minutes ago, so I'm going to thank you, Ken.
Two things I forgot to mention, then we'll take questions. One is that about a week or two ago, a student was arrested bringing a gun into a Phoenix Union school. So that illustrates the dangers that we want to try to prevent. The other thing I wanted to say is I give first priority to school resource officers, but that doesn't mean I'm against having counselors in the schools. I think that kids should have somebody to talk to when they have emotional problems. I served on a school board for 24 years, and the first 4-1 vote I was on the wrong side of was when the other 4 eliminated counselors, and I voted against it because I thought kids should have somebody to talk to when they need to. That's a second priority, and I'm hopeful we'll have a school resource officer and a counselor or a social worker in every school. But our first priority is to protect the lives of our students, and that's what we're emphasizing here today. And now I'll be happy to take any questions, or I'm sure the legislators will be happy to take questions too. Yes?
Hi, Mr. Superintendent. First of all, thank you so much for putting on this press conference today. First part of my question is in regards to a statement you made to KJZZ back in February. You said you're not going to send to the state board for any approval, any applications for a social worker with no policeman there. Does that still stand in terms of the?
Well, we're giving first priority to the school resource officers, but if there's money left over, we will grant it for counselors.
So if a school is requesting some money and they do not have SROs, they would not be getting said money? Is that an accurate statement?
If there's money left over after we take care of the school resource officers or counselors for schools that already have school resource officers, and all they ask for is a counselor, I'll recommend that to the state board.
And the Arizona School Counselors Association had some critiques of that. Their argument was that at a time when students are having severe mental health issues and fentanyl is starting to go into our classrooms, it's not the time to make those types of priorities. What's your response to those criticisms?
What I said earlier, I'm also in favor of having counselors in the schools, and that's a second priority, which is still high on the priority list. It's just that the first priority is to protect their lives. But school counselors are on, and social workers are a second priority, and to the extent there's money available, if that's all they want, they'll get it.
May I add something?
Yes, please.
With regards to the SRO, active shooter is absolutely one of the things that we are most afraid of. But in our district, in Casa Grande Union High School, my nephew was in a class with 77 students. 77 students in one class in biology at Casa Grande Union. CNN actually had to cover it. The SROs are not only there for active shooter, but they're also there for gang fights and riots that are happening amongst the students themselves. And I think that when we have police officers and people who are there protecting students on an everyday, it makes for a safer environment. And so I just wanted to add that little tidbit in as well. Thank you.
Yes, that reminds me also, school resource officers are not only there for safety, they also are there, they teach classes, and they're there all year round, so they become friendly with the students. The students learn to treat them as someone they can trust rather than as an enemy. Yes.
Yes. In the Uvalde mass shooting, there was a whole team of officers there, and they took an hour and 15 minutes to respond, even after they were at the school. And that's an example of having the resources, having officers there, and still having an active shooter threat kill 19 people.
Right.
What is your response?
Yeah, my response to that is that it's not an example, it's the terrible example, and I think the whole country learned from it, and I don't think that'll ever happen again. Those police officers have been shamed publicly for the whole country, and I don't think any other police officers will ever follow that example. Yes.
What was the sample size for the statewide survey and for Phoenix Union families in particular?
614 total, and Maricopa County was 300. Parents.
Mr. Horne, if I can respond to the Uvalde
Yes.
question on Uvalde, I think that is an important example of why the Second Amendment is so important. It was a father. A father found out his child was in danger. He exercised his Second Amendment right. He borrowed a shotgun or a gun, from what I understand, from his barber, ran to the school, and went in and did what police failed to do. So it is a perfect example of why people need to be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights.
And a follow-up question to that, will these SRO officers have training so that if there is an active threat, they know what to do and are able to act?
Yes, I can answer.
Yeah, I'll let the superintendent.
Yes,
answer.
we're instituting special intensive training for SROs because the training that a police officer normally receives might not be enough to handle the high stress situation of an invasion of that kind. And we have Sid and Mike here who are in charge of that, and they're seeing to it that we're going to have a very intensive program of additional training for school resource officers.
A follow-up to that question, can you elaborate on what that training will be like, and also if that training will be passed off to staff and students as well, and how to act in those situations?
The plan right now is just to train the school resource officers. They're the ones that will be there with a gun, and they need to get intensive training in how to react to high stress, how to deal with a situation with an active shooter in a crowd. Those are very special problems, and they're going to get additional intensive training on that.
Mr. Superintendent.
Yes.
Just wanted to follow up real fast.
Yeah.
When I spoke earlier about the bill that I had, 2705, that bill is actually deals with exactly what you said. So that bill allows for training from companies. You have a company called Faster Save Lives is one of them. They're nationwide. They teach teachers, they teach administration, they teach anybody who wants to learn. If there's a live shooter, what do you do? Like what are the steps? If there's somebody that is shot, what do you do? Right? So that's something that's extremely important, like the superintendent stated. We want to make sure whether you're an SRO, whether you're somebody who wants to learn, whether it's a teacher, administrator, janitor, anybody, why wouldn't we make sure that there's training available for anybody who wants to have it to make sure that they can handle a situation like that? So that is 100% something that I know we as a legislature support. We have bills that do it. Like I said, unfortunately, everybody voted no on the other side of the aisle. I'm not sure why, but that is something that is extremely important to have when you speak of having people on campus that know what they're doing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
If I can just say a quick
Yes,
word about
please.
If I can just say a quick word about Uvalde. Uvalde didn't have SRO officers. So if they had SRO officers, maybe the officer would have been trained to protect the children, or locked down, to protect the school, to engage the perpetrator immediately. But that's not the case. So I just want to make that point clear. Thank you.
You had your head up.
Sir, I come from high school students as well, and I wanted to know how many officers you plan to have within our schools, and how would you be able to help teach us and get us to be in the right situation and protected, and would you do background checks on the officers before having them protect us in our schools?
Yes, school resource officers have to be certified by POST, which is the agency that certifies police officers. So they do the background checks, and the police officers. One of the great things about them is they're not just for safety; they're also there to teach classes and be friendly with the students. So they will be teaching the students those sorts of things. And then, as you mentioned, there's a bill to give further training to the people in the school. Yes.
I come from and I was wondering about how are you guys what is your opinion on guns and gun violence, because how I do believe that maybe we should have stricter ways of doing how are the kids getting the gun. That is a problem, and I do believe that someone of your guys' standard would find a way for kids not to a way for kids not to get guns.
Right. That's outside my jurisdiction. My job is to be sure that the kids in the schools are safe, and that's what I'm taking care of. You had your hand up, I think. Did you, or did I miss it?
recent reporting by the Washington Post and the press identified safety issues with the model of firearm being carried by police, including one incident where the gun discharged without accidentally inside a school when it was carried by a school resource officer. What steps is the state taking to make sure the firearms carried by SROs are safe?
Yeah, as I mentioned, they're going to have special intensive training. All school resource officers will have that. So that should take care of that. Are there other questions? I'll get you in a second. I want to be sure everyone has a chance once. Did you ask one already?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah.
A 2019 Secret Service study about school shootings that your office put on social media stated that most shooters acquire firearms from your parents or from a relative. Do you support the proposed law that requires all guns to be locked up, to lock up the firearms at home?
As I mentioned earlier, that's beyond my jurisdiction. I'm talking about keeping the kids safe at school. Yes, and then I think the legislators have committee hearings they need to get back to. But
I was just asking if you would support that type of law.
it's outside my jurisdiction. I have enough controversies to deal with in my jurisdiction. Go ahead.
With that polling, I know you mentioned the sample size is around roughly over 600 people.
Yes.
Any other, can you tell us a little bit more about how it was conducted? Was it an email sent out to parents? Was it voluntary, that sort of thing?
It was a professional poll done by OH, whose sister company has a contract with the state. And they have assured us that the sample sizes are sufficient to give us reliability, both statewide and the one we put focus on those within Phoenix Union High School District because they have a decision coming up, and they told us both were sufficient to give reliable results. I'm sorry, I have to let everybody got one chance that had raised their hands, and I have to let the legislators go, but thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Where did you take it? Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Superintendent. Of course, this is good.
Yeah, sure.